we could fly.
Welcome to this new season of the Have a Cup of Johanny podcast. So I want to title this new season that I'm embarking on with I'm growing. So this is going to be the season of growth. And that's what I'm going to share with you throughout the season. So I thank you for coming over here and sitting with me. And I hope you enjoy. Hello, everyone. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about one of those, look at me, I'm already giving it away. We're going to discuss about one of those topics that we hardly ever discuss, which is money. Are you ready? Let's get it. All right. So if you heard me, you know that I went on vacation and I overspent. I overspent. And I can admit that. And my budget has admitted that as well. So I have become even more conscious than I was before about my money. And I have once again streamlined this budget. I limited myself even more this time around so that way I can just pay off the credit card as soon as I can. And I am being very strict, people, like very strict to the point it's like, no more eating out. I'm not, and like I said on another episode, I'm not even going to go see the Barbie movie or anything like that. I'm going to wait until it just shows up on streaming services and everything, all because I'm trying to make sure that I pay off the debt so that way I don't incur interest, because incurring interest, that means that I'm giving somebody else my hard-earned money, and I don't want to do that. I work for it too hard for me to just like give it out like that. All right, so we're going to discuss the whole finding balance. So you heard me saying I'm going to be very strict for this short period until I pay off the credit card. And I already know, but that's not how I'm going to stay, because that's not sustainable for me, because it's close to how it is when I go on a very strict diet, which I used to do before, but I don't do any longer because I know it doesn't work for me. Because if I take something off of my plate and just like make myself to never eat a certain thing, or in this case, if I make myself to never spend on anything, I know I'm going to get to a point where I'm just going to splurge. And then I may go back to the same moment where I am at now, at having to be once again strict with my budget so that way I can pay off debt. So I know that doesn't work for me. So just like I'm working out and I have a more balanced diet now where it's sustainable for me and where I eat healthy, but I also don't deprive myself of the baked goods that I love. I just do it with rationing, right? I ration it so that way it is more feasible for me and I can sustain it. The same way it goes for my finance. I can't even talk right now. For my finances, I found a balance between enjoying the hard-earned money that I have, but also securing a stable financial future, not just for me, but for my generation, right? I want generational wealth. I don't want my next generation to struggle the way that I had. I want them to find more peace, be able to devote most of their time on creative projects as opposed to like that hustle culture that I delve in and I'm part of, just so that way I can set the next generation up. So I want it to be different for them. So that's why I do what I do. But there's different things. There's various things, I should say, that I had to understand and focus on to find that balance. So some of those things were identify my goals, my financial goals and priorities. Another thing was establishing a budget. Another thing was automatic savings and investments. Another thing is prioritizing debt management. That's really important. Another thing was building multiple income streams. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And lastly, communication and education. And this is where I'm going to let you know about this amazing book that I read. Okay, so let's start with the first one, and that is identifying your financial goals and priorities. So, like you heard me saying, right, for me, a goal of mine is to be financially stable for me, but also to be able to build generational wealth for the next generation to come. And when I understand that, when I put that as one of my priorities, and it's like putting a vision board up, right? When that is at the forefront of my mind, then I'm able to align my actions to that priority, to that goal. And that's what I have done, especially now that I'm very stringent. It was like a wake up call because I've gotten very comfortable with my budget, how it's been, and the habits that I built, and my credit score, and all of that. And this vacation and how I spent on this vacation kind of like made me go back to how it used to be before. It was like a wake up call. It's like, look, don't get complacent. Don't get complacent with your money, especially at the stage where I am now, where it's like I'm here in a few years, I'll be transitioning, right, from active duty to retiree and embarking on something completely different, which will be full-time authorship and podcasting and all of that. So now is not the time to get complacent, but I was getting complacent with my money. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm making enough. I have savings. I have a house, and all these other things. Great, 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 great. But I had lost track of my priority, which is to become financially stable, right? And for me, that means that I don't have to worry as I go into another stage of life. I don't have to worry about the source of money because I'm making my money work for me. And my other priority is to set up the next generation to be wealthy, right? So that way they can have generational wealth. And how can I do that if I'm being complacent myself? How can I do that if I'm not financially stable? How can I do that if I have not been aggressive enough when it comes to my investments? And I make sure that these investments are something that can last long term and that I am able to pass down to the next generation. So that is number one of my focus areas when it comes to budgeting and finding that balance when it comes to my financial life. And the second one that I wanted to talk to you about is establishing a budget. I've talked about this one before, but I mean, it makes sense to rehash it again. And it's also something that is important habit to have. And it is something that should be discussed more often. I really don't hear and don't engage in enough conversations about budgets, but this is like one of the most fundamental steps. And I wish, I know when I was going through school, this was a while back, budgeting was not a thing that you did in school, right? Hopefully there is. If there is, let me know. I'll let you know my email or you can put it in the comments. But let me know if it is. If schools started, implementing like budget sheets and teaching budgets to kids. I think it's a disservice that we don't do that for kids if we don't. And if we do, great. I am so happy because this is a fundamental step. Like this is step one before you even start thinking about anything else, investing, buying a home, buying a car, and all of that. It all starts with this building block, which is creating a budget. This is where like we analyze, okay, this is how much money is coming in. This is how much money comes out. This is where I'm going to pay myself. And that means this is where I'm saving. And this is what I'm going to use for discretionary, funding for fun stuff. This is what I'm going to use for investing. It all starts there. Just seeing everything laid out in front of you. And that is a budget. And for me, a budget is like a good plan. I love a good plan because it gives me peace of mind. And that's what a budget does because I see it there in front of me and I know I'm going to have enough for those things that I want and those things that I need. And that helps me sleep at night. So a budget for me is like a security blanket of sorts. And I really do wish that we would discuss this more and we would teach it at the most basic level with kids, because it all starts with a budget. When it comes to money management, it really starts there. So that's the second thing. That is an always focus for me. So, but I put it in here, when it comes to finding my financial balance, because it is a fundamental step. Okay. All right. Let's move on to 3, which is, my husband is really good at this one. He is really good at this one. And it is paying yourself, or automating automatic savings and investments. My husband, he does this first before he pays bills. I'm sorry, I'm opening my bottle right now so I can drink. I pay bills before I pay myself. And my husband always gets on me about that. He's like, you got to pay yourself first. You pay yourself first. Blah, blah, blah. You make that money for you. So he is big on this. His shit is like automatic. So I'm trying to get better at this. But this is right here. This is what builds generational wealth right here. When you make your automations when it comes to savings and investments. So I have finally made my investments automatic, where every week I'm tapping into my paychecks to invest. And then I have those investments just doubling up, right? They're just rolling over, like rollover minutes. I keep tabs on them. And then my husband stays tethered to the news, so he kind of knows how it will fluctuate and so forth. But I don't do too much with it. I have the funds and some stocks, because for me, this is a long-term game. This is a long-term investment for me. So I'm not here to trade. I'm not a stock trader by any means necessary. I'm just trying to make my money work for me. And how do I do that? By having like a diverse portfolio of funds, bonds, and stocks. I do need to buy more international stocks, because sometimes the domestic market is not the best, and I want to be able to even that out. So that will be my next step, is to diversify my portfolio. So having a diverse portfolio, kind of like having diverse people around you, is the best. It is more balanced, and it helps you quite a lot, just like it does with people. So that's what I'm working on. And I just started making my savings automatic. What I used to do before, and that's why my husband used to get on me, was that whatever I had left over would be like, oh, okay, well, I'll put that in the savings, right? And a lot of the times I wouldn't. I would just leave it there and be like, ooh, more money to play with later. And now that this vacation has slapped me in the face when it comes to my discretionary funds and my money, now I know that was not the best thing to do. So what can I say? Live and learn. And sometimes I have to learn the hard way, and this is one of them. So I have finally made my savings automatic. So it comes out as soon as I get paid, and then it just goes into a savings. Now, that's not where they're going to stay. So once I accumulate there, then I will once again push that into a CD and a high yield savings account, which I'll be opening. So that way it goes there and the money works for me. Because believe it or not, just having it in the savings, that's good. That gives me peace of mind, but that money really doesn't make any more money. It kind of stays stagnant there. So, but I like to have some there just because it's emergencies, right? For emergencies, because shit happens. But I don't need that much there, because I have credit cards for emergencies. And then what happens if I use those credit cards and I just plug that money that I have saved in there, boom, into the credit card. So it builds my credit report, right? And then I don't pay somebody interest, because I would have paid it off before the interest kicks in. Boom. All right. So let's move into prioritizing debt, which is what I'm working on right now. So I don't think I said this here. I think I said this when I was answering a post on Facebook. But I learned about prioritizing debt very early on in my life, because I was a single mom for a very long time before I met and married my husband. And I had I had revolving debt at that time. And I also had certain bills that I couldn't pay and certain bills that just went without paying and that went into my credit report. So it was a mess of things. And when I finally stopped running away from the bills and sat down with all of them, it was like anxiety inducing for me. But when I finally did this, then I prioritized them in order of interest rate. So those with the highest interest rate, I paid off first. And then I did like the snowball effect. I read this in a book back then that they were giving for free at Army Community Service is ACS. It's an agency that we have on post that helps soldiers with everything that you can think of under the sun, really, finances, blah, blah, everything. They even have financial counselors there for free. So I got a book from them when it came to that. And the way that I learned is through reading. All right. So if you want me to know something or learn something, send me a book. And that's what happened here. So I read about different ways to pay off debt, and I was like, this sounds like something I can work with, because what it was saying is like focus on the highest interest rate, right? Which is what I did. Don't get me wrong, I was getting so little money that some of the other bills were just not getting paid. And they weren't going to get paid until I snowballed enough of my resources. And that's because I didn't get paid enough at that time. And also, I didn't have what we're going to discuss next, which was multiple income streams. So that's what happened. But for those that I was not paying, I called the corporation, the business or whatnot that I owe that money to. And for those that I had defaulted, I think it was one that I defaulted because I called the business. It was like, oh, we already sold your loan to blah, 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 blah. Then I had to engage with whoever the POC, the point of contact that they gave me for that one. And but that's what I did. For those that I knew I didn't have enough money to pay and was not going to pay until I snowballed enough resources into it, I just called them and explained my situation, and they were very understanding. And some of them told me, if you just pay this amount, we will have you shown as paid, or yes, we're going to give you that grace period, and we're not going to put any more interest on that bill. So talking to them really helped me out a lot. It didn't like not help me, because I was able to get some sort of resolution on those bills that I had to put a pause on. But that's what I did. So the high interest rates I started paying, and then I think it was very minimal too. It was like $50 to $100 around there, right? And then once that got paid off, then I rolled that over, and then I rolled that over, and then I rolled that over and it was years, folks. It was years. So this wasn't overnight. I had to be very patient. And that's why I said when I saw how I had overspent on my summer vacation, it just took me back to that time. It's not as bad, but it took me back to that time when I had to be really strict on myself for like years. Because I remember it was like 3 to 5 years by the time I got out of that. Because somebody had asked me, they was like, when was the last time that you had gone to the mall? And because they had seen my clothes, once I got out of uniform. And I was like 5 years, I told them, and they just shook their head, and I saw the pity in their eyes. But my baby, his clothes were good. I make sure his clothes were good. I was like, I don't really need anything new or fancy as long as he's taken care of, right? And I'm paying these bills. We're good. We're good. So for me, that was a win. But yeah. So that's how I did it back then. That's how I'm doing it now. Fortunately, it's a little bit different. So I'm not going to go years of being strict, right? But just three to 4 months. Okay. Still, like it brought me back to that time. So that's why I'm like, it has been a wake up call for me, of course. So The next one, what I gave you all an inkling about was building multiple income streams. So at that time, I didn't because it's just at the time, right? So with building multiple income streams, you have to, I had to assess my time limitations. That's one. And then what would it do for me? Because as a single mom, so if I went and did a second job or if I did anything else, right, to have another income stream, then that means that I would have to pay a babysitter. And then that means that the money that I will make off of that will go into that bill, which will really null me out, right? So it wouldn't have matter. So, and I know there are some people that are in that same predicament. However, I think because now we're more of an online, that the opportunities are more open now to online jobs and small hustle ventures that you can do online where you wouldn't necessarily need a babysitter of sorts. So I think now, thankfully, because of all the technology that we have, then building multiple income streams, it's more feasible. For me, what I have going on now are my books. Are you ready to embark on a captivating journey of resilience and revelation? Get ready to immerse yourself in the extraordinary world of Isla Delgado, a 9-year-old girl who has experienced more than her fair share of trauma. Isla's life takes a dramatic turn when she's forced to live with her dad and his new wife for 6 months. Her anxiety intensifies as she becomes convinced that her stepmom is an evil witch. But Isla is determined to protect herself and expose her stepmom's true nature. As the gripping story unfolds, Isla discovers that things aren't always as they seem. People are saying, while the alarming trend of attempting to ban books continues in the United States, this book is a fantastic reminder of the power that books have. A child will read this story and feel seen, heard, and hopefully feel some peace. For children of the appropriate age, this book provides the opportunity for a wonderful exercise in empathy. The message of this story is truly something a lot of children out there, and even some adults, might need to hear. Join Isla on a transformative journey of self-discovery, where she learns that even the most traumatic experiences can be triumphantly overcome with the power of love and understanding. Mrs. Franchi's Evil Ring is available everywhere books are sold. They are like an author told me when I was talking to him, he was like, books are a legacy. This is a long game. They, as long as you haven't published, they will always be there. As long as you advertise them, they will always be there. Somebody will find them, somebody will read it, and then that person will talk to another person. And that's what I've been doing. So the free time that I have, not only am I doing this podcast, so that way I can build community with you all, but I'm also writing as well. I'm utilizing some of my free time to write and publish books. So that way that can be another source of income for me. Right now it's helping me to cover some of the book expenses. And I'm hoping that as I get more traction, it will help me with actual income. So here's to that, right? Here's to hoping for that. So if you're listening to this, help me out and recommend my book to other people. Okay. All right. And then the next, which I'm so excited about, is called communication and education. And that is a big focus. And just like I said, when it comes to budgets, I think that is a thing that we should be teaching and a thing that we should be communicating more often, because once again, it's the foundational step of everything that comes to finances and that it comes to being an adult, paying your own bills. You kind of need a budget. So I wish we will have open and honest communications when it comes to that with our family members. Like just recently, I shared with my husband, I was like, look, these are my goals. You know, obviously we are very open when it comes to our finances with one another. So he already knew that for both of us, the summer vacation had put like a damper on our resources, on our budget. So we're both very stringent right now when it comes to that. So we already knew about that. Um, but now I'm explaining, we're both talking about our financial priorities, paying off the home and all this other stuff. And we are aligned when it comes to that. And I wish more people, right, that are in the same household will be just as open in that communication, because it really does help. It really helps, because you may not be doing something that you should, or you're doing something that the other person is doing, so you wouldn't have to do it. You know what I'm saying? So when the communication is open, even if you're not sharing the same income, it's important to both, especially if you're living with somebody under the same roof. And when it comes to education about finances, I can't say this enough, but I love the Budgenista. Just Google the Budgenista. That was one of the first books, no, the first book that I read that had to do with budget, that didn't have an impossible language there when it came to money. So I can't recommend it enough. The Budgetista wrote a book that makes budgeting, makes financing, makes investing accessible to everyone. And I appreciate it when authors do that, when authors break down a subject that is very complex into a language that is accessible to all. And then that's what this book brought to me. And I read it, I listened to it. I listened to it with my husband on a long trip as well. So that way we both get the same education. And I love it. I believe she has a podcast, so I'm going to put all of that on the show notes. And I can't remember the other books right now as I'm recording, but there are other books that really educated me when it comes to finances, and that has helped me out a lot to make my money work for me. And I will put those on the show notes. But remember, this is not easy. Achieving financial balance it's a long journey. And I think patience right here, planning and introspection is key. Is key. You got to be strategic with this, and you got to be patient and give yourself grace, so that way you can achieve this financial balance. And try to be joyful, try to be in the moment. Don't deprive yourself. And because it's not an either or choice. It's just sometimes these choices that we make when it comes to money, it's like, I'll do this now. It's prioritizing, right? And then I'll wait a little bit to get this. So think about it that way. You may have to refrain your mind when it comes to certain things, so that way you don't kind of shoot yourself in the foot per se and derail your progress when it comes to finding financial balance. But it does help if you identify your goals, right? These key things that we talked about here. Discuss them, plan them, create a budget, automate your savings and investments, pay yourself first, manage your debt, try to see if you can build multiple income streams, and then just foster that open communication with other people, especially those that you live under the same roof, and educate yourself on any free resources or accessible resources when it comes to finance. Okay. And I think because it has helped me, and I think that may help you as well. So thank you all for listening. That went a little long. This was a little how-to-ish episode, right? But it needed to be done. It needed to be done. This is something that I wanted to talk about just because, summer vacation happened, and it's been big on my mind. And it's something that I learned from, and it's something that I want to share with you all. So that way, if you're in the same predicament, don't feel so bad. Don't feel so alone. So am I. And if you're not, maybe you can mitigate it from happening, after you listen to this episode. Nevertheless, I hope that you learned something and that you enjoyed this episode as much as I have. And if you do, don't forget to like and subscribe the podcast, Have a Cup of Johanny. And if you have any suggestions for me, don't forget, I have an email. That is joa@haveacupofjohanny.com. That is joa@haveacupofjohanny.com. I will see you next Wednesday. Every Wednesday is a new episode. See you then. Bye.
Oh, we could fly.
Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the show. See you on the next episode. Bye.
Oh, we could fly.